I'm here in the beautiful suburbs of Buenos Aires, Argentina, Provincia. As we see, we have some rustic vibes going on. It is a beautiful place we're in called San Isidro. We're about, I'd say, 45 minutes to an hour away from downtown Buenos Aires, and this is known throughout the country as a very nice neighborhood, if not the best. This neighborhood is compiled among a bunch of other neighborhoods coming from the city of Buenos Aires. So there's Buenos Aires, the city, and then Buenos Aires, Provincia. This is the Provincia part right outside of the city, right outside of the border. Once you get outside of the city towards the north, it gets more residential. It doesn't get any less beautiful. It's gonna stay beautiful. It is summertime. It is mid-January. And yeah, I just love walking around the city. So why do I like Buenos Aires? I'm gonna make sure my hair's okay. This is for YouTube. PassportPapi.usa here. 250,000 followers on Instagram. I promised myself I would post a lot more on YouTube this year, 2026. So here we go. Just showing you long form videos of what I already do without editing. I'm not gonna edit. I don't care if I look ugly right now. I just came out of a workout class. Yeah, why do I like Buenos Aires? Why do I like Argentina? The cities are designed like professionally, like perfectly. This is just a residential neighborhood. It was all planned out, and it was built by Europeans. People from Europe immigrated here and built it. Now, where does Argentina differ from other Latin American countries? So this is very interesting, and I do want to touch up on this topic. Argentina is a lot different from other countries in Latin America because their history is a lot later. And you can relate this to the United States. The history of Latin America started about 500 years ago. The history of colonial Latin America. Of course, Latin America has a very rich and deep indigenous history that is sometimes overlooked. And I don't want to underscore what was done before the Europeans came, but let's just be honest. The Incans didn't have the wheel invented already. So, I mean, seriously, like the Europeans came and really built this place out more than it was. Of course, there was infrastructure. Of course, the Europeans were impressed with what the Incas built, with what the Mayans built, with what the Aztecs built. And of course, the empires before them, because the Incans are actually pretty recent. 1200 AD is when their empire started. And their empire was starting to crumble right before the Spanish came. What I'm trying to say here is there's a super long and rich history with all these countries in Latin America. You look at Lima, Peru, one of the first mega cities of colonial Latin America that Spain focused on. Lima, Peru was incorporated in 1538. Now, Buenos Aires, cities like Buenos Aires didn't start to build up until the 1800s, 300 years after Lima. So the history of Argentina is delayed in relation to the other Latin American countries like Brazil, for example. Salvador, which was the first capital of Brazil, that was in the 1500s as well. You look at Cuba, you look at Havana, 1500s. And then you look at Buenos Aires. Buenos Aires started to become prominent. It was just an outpost until the 1800s. People didn't really pay attention too much to Buenos Aires. It was too far. The ports were bad. There was no law and order. Buenos Aires wasn't really a nice place until it started to gain more attention with the influx of European migrants in the late 1800s, like the 1890s. It was far behind the curve. It was a lot more poor than Peru and Upper Peru, which is now Bolivia. You probably didn't know this, but the richest city in Latin America was Sucre in Bolivia, in modern day Bolivia, because it's next to Potosí, which produced 60% of the world's silver at its peak production. So what makes Argentina so much different from all these other countries is its history is delayed in relation to them. That's why it's different. Whereas these other countries, like Peru, like Venezuela, like Brazil, you see an influx of European specifically Portuguese and Spaniards, going to these countries very early on in the 1500s, creating a whole class of the Creole elite, which are essentially Spaniards born in the New World. These are Creoles. And then having this sort of friction with the crown of Spain, with the Spanish and the Creoles having this friction because the Spanish look down on the Spanish that were born in the New World, which are the Creoles. And they have this whole history. And then came Argentina after all that. After they mixed in with the Incas and worked with the New Spain and Mexico. After all of this, that's when Argentina started to really grow. Was after all this history passed, after Spain became less relevant in the New World, after Simón Bolívar tried to liberate all the countries. That's when Argentina started to grow, whereas these other countries reached their peak, like Peru, Mexico, Brazil. In the world, in the context of the world, they reached their production peak before the 1800s, whereas Argentina reached its peak after the 1800s. And this is important to note because the later migration of European migrants, this created a whole different culture. It created a more European culture, whereas Peru, Brazil, Cuba, these cultures were forming and mixing for a couple hundred years until Argentina started to prosper, and there were a bunch of issues in Europe, actually, in the 1800s, famines and whatnot, overpopulation, that drove a lot of people out and into Argentina, where it was sort of this blank slate. And this is where it relates to the United States. The United States was sort of this blank slate as well. Of course, there were indigenous groups, but these were not the advanced civilizations that we saw in modern day Mexico, that we saw in Peru, where they had these huge trading networks, these cities like Cusco. There weren't formal settlements that were big in North America, in modern day United States. Neither were there that many, excluding, the Andes, the northern part of Argentina near Salta. There weren't really any in Argentina as well. So it created this blank slate where for the hundreds of years, while Spain was focusing on Peru, Spain was focusing on the Caribbean, Spain was focusing on Mexico, Portugal was focusing on Brazil, they weren't focusing on Argentina. So there were these gauchos, these cowboys just running around, no real economy. And then all of a sudden, Bolivar takes back, Simón Bolivar. He inspires a revolution across Latin America, kicks Spain out, and also Argentina also, which was under the Spanish crown, but more loosely than Peru or Mexico. They also separate, but it impacted Argentina a lot less than it impacted Peru, Upper Peru, Mexico, the Caribbean. So this is what I wanted to stress, is because Argentina was this blank slate, a lot of Europeans came in and they created the culture. They were the ones that built the cities that we see today. Whereas in Peru and Brazil and Mexico to some degree, the Mexicans themselves built some pretty impressive neighborhoods like La Condesa. But the best parts of Peru, the best parts of Brazil were built by the colonial Europeans in the early days, in the 1500s, 1600s, 1700s. And then after that, there's this sort of cultural decline. Whereas Argentina, it's a lot more recent. So they had their boom in the late 1800s, the 1900s, where they just built just extraordinary neighborhoods, right? A lot more recent, 300 years after Spain and Portugal were focusing on Brazil. Peru, Mexico, Caribbean. So you get this more recent development. And what does that mean? That means that it's newer. So of course it's 100 years old now, but it like 100 years versus 500 years, right? It's newer and it's a lot bigger. It's a lot more expansive. Like I can walk from here, San Isidro, all the way down to Microcentro, which is downtown, which is passing by 10 neighborhoods, which is huge. It would take me probably 7-8 hours to do so. It would take me a long time, a very long time to do that. That's why I like Argentina. It's because the Europeans, they were pretty much given this blank slate where they didn't have as much cultural baggage as Peru does, as Mexico does, as Brazil does, and they were able to build out cities without as much adversity. Oh yeah, you got the trash man here. This is why Argentina is a better country, and that's also why the United States is also a great country. It's Europeans, a different type of European, more Anglo-Saxon. Now, the people that built up Argentina were primarily Southern Europeans, so a lot of Italians, of course, Anglo-Saxon as well, and a lot of people think German. There's not as much German influence as you might think. Of course, there's German architecture, but the number of Germans is actually relatively small compared to the number of Spanish and Italians. So you get this more Southern Italian, you get this more, not Southern Italian, you get this more Southern European culture, which is prevalent in specific cities of the United States, particularly New York. And then you get this organization that you find in the United States, but just a build quality, because they focused a lot before the Second World War. So you get this like pre-World War II build quality that everyone loves so much. And they plan these neighborhoods. They plan them perfectly. It's a grid system with parks, frequent parks. Wherever you are in Buenos Aires, Argentina, you are 10 minutes from a park, walking. Look at this. Now, these rants, I'm gonna call this banter, this San Isidro banter. Perfect to put on while you're doing something else. Just let me banter. Just let me talk. I'm not gonna edit this. I know a lot. Fact check me. Oh, 1538. Peru wasn't. Lima, Peru wasn't incorporated then. Okay, then tell me. 1538. It's either 1538 or 1536. Fact check me on that. I'm pretty sure it's 1538. I know my shit. And that's why you should book a travel advising call with me. I do offer one-on-one travel advising calls. Now, if you are planning to embark on your journey in Latin America, you do want to talk to someone that has lived all over Latin America and went through it all, works with the governments, works with the businesses in these countries. You want to talk to someone. I don't want to put myself on a pedestal. I really don't, but I don't know anyone else who's better for advice in Latin America, whether it be what street by street. It matters what street you're on, or neighborhood, of course, city. How to rent a car, where to go to meet people, girls, where the best ones are for what you're looking for. Networking, what type of industry you're in and trying to grow, business opportunities. You need to book a call with me if you want to get the best ROI. That's just a fact. And I'm offering that on my website, passportpapi.travel. It's the first button as of today. It's the first button all the way up there. Go ahead and book a call with me. We'll schedule it. We'll get you on the phone with me one-on-one, and we'll talk through all your plans, iron them out, and you'll be ready to go. Best ROI, best investment of your money. Now, go ahead, give this video a like, subscribe, support the page. I will be posting a lot more frequently here on YouTube. We're gonna grow the YouTube here in 2026. I'm gonna try, obviously a bunch of different styles. There's gonna be hits, there's gonna be misses. I really don't care. That's the big thing about social media, is you gotta be ready to just not have any views on some stuff. Who cares? Are you too good to try? Right? Like I'm always trying. I'm always putting videos out. Sometimes they're not good. Usually they are good. Because I practice so much. So it does take practice. Oop, let's get through this guy. Oop. Something that I like about Argentina is you got everything. It's luxurious. This is an Audi dealership. Super beautiful. A lot of these beautiful neighborhoods. Here in San Isidro, Argentina.